going on? This is Groove Slick here. I've been on iRacing for about 10 years, and I've raced Formula 3 cars in the real world too. And let me tell you, the new iRacing LMP2 car is phenomenal. I'll definitely qualify this with cars change over time in iRacing and different setups change how a car reacts, so I can't say how the car will feel a month or 2 months from now, but I can say right now, this is one of the best cars, if not the best car in iRacing in my opinion. You can drive it hard into the corner, you can drive it hard out of the corner, you get power slides where your car doesn't just stall in a power slide like it does in other cars in iRacing. You can save slides, the tire's very reactive. You can tell I really enjoy driving this car. But before I get more into that, I want to talk about why this is the most important car for iRacing for this past year in my opinion, and why it was so important that they nailed it out of the park like they did. And to do that, we have to understand the messy history of multi-class racing on iRacing. So if we go way back to September 2010, that is when iRacing got the Corvette GT1. And shortly thereafter, it got the HPD LMP2, the previous LMP2 car to the one that we have now, and later came the Ford GT2. So at this point, we had three different classes that kind of represented the pinnacle of North American and European multi-class racing. And remember that LMP2 isn't really the same LMP2 that we have now. If you look back to when iRacing released this content back in 2011, LMP2s would race LMP1 for overall leads. So this LMP2 car was really LMP1 and a half or a LMP1 light car. It was not an LMP2 car. iRacing has a top-level sports car championship. They have that top prototype, and they have two solid GT classes. Oh, wait, sorry. This picture is from 2008. In reality, by 2011, the Corvette GT1 is dead. And in 2012, the Acura 01 and the Ford GT2 are also dead. In reality, the 01B died in 2009, but we can just forget about that and move on. And then for 2012, the LMP2s are nerfed, and the Acura 01 is reborn as the 03B, only to be replaced by the 04 in 2014, which is this gem. This is all getting a bit messy, I think. Let's just erase all this mess and say that all of these cars were either about to be retired or retired by the time they joined in 2010 and 2011. We can now flash forward to 2017. So finally, after 6 years of driving an outdated Ford GT2, a breath of life has been blown into the lungs of multi-class racing and iRacing, and the Ford and Ferrari GTEs are both released in March 2017. Shortly thereafter, the LMP1s are brought as well. While the increased interest was great for the series and great for iRacing, it also shed light on the fact they were still using an LMP2 car that hadn't been in competition since 2011. Needless to say, by this point, users were desperate for a new LMP2 car. So finally, after 2 more years, in 2020, we have a modern LMP2 and iRacing. And let me tell you, it is amazing. Wow. Okay, now we're here at Daytona in this car at dusk. And if you aren't familiar with this car, it races with a Cadillac engine in the back in the IMSA series, and it's absolutely dominated Daytona 24 Hours for the past couple years. So I thought, there's no better place than here to try this car out. And the first thing you notice is this car is an absolute spaceship. That steering wheel is insane. They did an amazing job modeling this car. All the buttons are lighted nicely at night. But man, we need to get this car on track and really drive it and see how it feels. Another thing you notice though before I do that is just how tiny the cockpit is. You really feel like this car is just a part of your body. It's so small, it's so tight around you. Okay, I need to get driving this car though. Let's try it out in these cold tires. Here we go now, getting the car up to speed. Very careful, very cold tires. Very easy to spin the car. This car is an absolute beast. 600 horsepower in the back. And you feel all of it coming out of the corners. Absolutely all of it coming out of the corners. You have to be so delicate on these cold tires. Oh, just getting to the apex there. You can see the front tire scrubbing. Oh, and the rear want to come around. This car is such a beast. Taking it too deep in there again. You really need to be careful on these cold tires. Oh, we saved it. You oftentimes see at Daytona, the LMP2 cars getting passed by the GT through the infield in the first lap. And now I can totally understand why I'd be terrified being around GT Pro drivers in this car in the infield at Daytona. But anyways, it's a great thing that car does feel that way in cold tires because it might surprise you to hear this, but if you're not familiar with iRacing, one of the biggest issues they had in their tire model is that it feels so grippy on cold tires. Many cars are actually faster on their outlaps on cold tires than they are when the tires actually get the temperature. That is not at all the case in this car, and I love to see it. Oh, and now just sit back and listen to this engine purr as we go all the way up to 200 miles an hour. So I do have the low downforce setup here on the car, and you can really feel the downforce come off the car when you go into these low-speed corners. You can see I'm braking hard initially, and I have to peel off as I go into the corners. That's such a downforce car thing, and it feels so nice in this car. You can really hammer the brakes. The car feels stiffly sprung. It feels like it's supporting you throughout the entire braking zone. But here I'll show you, when you do lock up, it actually, you're able to get off the brakes and catch that lockup. It doesn't just keep locking up. So you see there, locked up and then brought it back. That's something, again, in iRacing you think, of course, that's the way locking up works. But in iRacing that's been an issue for a while, that, especially in the LMP1 cars. I'll often have it happen where I'll hit the brakes in a braking zone, brakes will lock up, I'll come off the brakes, and I'm literally at 10% brake pressure and it's still locking up. So it's really nice that they fixed that for this car. They just, like every complaint that people have about cars on iRacing, I feel like at least with this setup in this car, they don't exist. This is, as I said before, I've raced Formula 3 cars, I kind of know what to expect, I know how it should feel on those cold tires, it should feel the car sliding over the pavement, and that's exactly what you have here. I know how this should feel, I know how locking up brakes should feel, and that is exactly what is happening in this LMP2 car. It is so amazing, and they've come such a far way on iRacing. And they do get a lot of flack for their tire model and all that, and this is all obviously subjective opinion, but for me, you just really can't get any better than this car. Now we're on hot tires, we're going to start pushing the pace. You can see where I was struggling in braking and then cornering and exits. I can now really hammer these tires that they've heated up. Still want to short shift a bit there to get some extra traction on the corner. And there are a lot of buttons to play on. The next straight I'll show you the buttons you can play with here. Man, this car is just, I want to spend my life in it. Oh, it's just so amazing to drive. And you just give it a little boot of throttle, get some oversteer there. You can control it all the way out. This car, like, it wants you to drive it hard. It wants you to do that. It wants me to throw it in the corner and then slam on the throttle and oversteer. It wants me to do that. Usually cars in iRacing, you have to kind of underdrive them and drive them at 98, 97%. And if you go over that limit, you really lose so much speed. The car is uncontrollable. This car, like, it wants you. It's asking you, hey, push me a bit harder, push me a bit harder, push me a bit harder. Okay, now that we're on a straight again, I'm going to take you through some of the black boxes to kind of show you what controls you have in the car and how detailed it really is. So you can see that there's actually a new setting called Power Steering Assist right there. And by changing that, I can change what level power steering this car has. And it is that yellow indicator. I've gotten it to change before, but it's not changing now. It still says 3 even when I change it. But so you have the power steering assist, and then you also have your normal car adjustments, brake bias. So it's like the brake bias here in this top left side. You can see I changed the brake bias there, and that changes there. And then we also have your gain. So basically how aggressively the traction control is when you're sliding. So basically when this traction control kicks in, how much does it really prevent you from sliding further? And slip is how far does it let you go before it intervenes. So it's how far does it go before it intervenes, and then how much does it intervene when it doesn't intervene. And then throttle shape is basically like how aggressively, like if I do 90% throttle, does that mean it's putting out 90% engine power or whatever, or do I want 90 to be 80% or what you want it to be? So you can change that too. So if you're having issues sliding out of the corner, maybe try changing the throttle shape, and that'll kind of help you kind of refine how you use the throttle. And then display page, you can just change how display page looks. So you can look at brake temperature, tire temperature, a lot of cool stuff. Okay, I'll shut up now and let you enjoy the glorious sound of this Gibson V8 as I do a hot lap around Daytona. Wow. What a car. Not my best lap, but as I said, this is a car that just begs you to take it deeper and deeper into the braking zone. And begs you to get on that throttle hard and really wrestle through the corners. Oh, it's just such a pleasure to drive. So, in terms of models, I mentioned this, but it's just a beautiful car model. The interior is amazing. Really love what they did. Again, I wish that display they have here, you really should be able to enable that so I can use that for virtual flagging. I don't have to rely on their flags above my head. But that's a small thing. They've disabled engine mapping in iRacing, which is a thing. I guess it's an overall iRacing problem, not really just a this car problem. You actually don't save fuel by saving fuel in iRacing. The only way you can save fuel is by lifting and coasting, not by changing engine maps. So that's a strange thing for iRacing. But and then the last thing is audio-wise. I'd say audio of this car is honestly what I was most, I hate to say disappointed with, because it's not bad at all. But it just, the engine note, this car in person, I was literally going hoarse when I was at the Daytona 24 when I saw these cars, because they sound so good. The Gibson V8, that is. The Cadillacs sound great too, but the Gibson V8s sound so amazing. They're like this wailing, screaming sound. And it's good in these cars, but you definitely don't get that depth of it. It sounds very one-dimensional compared to the real car. It's just so unbelievable to listen to. And I'll play some exteriors right now so you can hear it. That's probably my biggest letdown for this car is the engine sounds. Which, I mean, how often are you going to be listening to the outside engine sound on the cars when you're racing them in iRacing? Yeah, they're definitely good, but it's not they're not spectacular like I would want them to be. Anyways, as I mentioned before, this video is really my first impressions of the car. So the car will change and adapt later through this season and through future seasons. So what I say now in September of 2020 will change in the coming months and years. But I would say this is my favorite car in iRacing because it really asks you to put in a lot of effort. And if you put in a lot of effort and drive this car hard, it will reward you. Which is just, for me, that is what I look for in a racing car, and that's what this car gives me. So my first impression of this car is, I think it's the best car in iRacing. That's my first impression of this car. Thank you so much for watching. As you can tell, I love cars and car racing. And the whole point of this channel is to share that love with you. So, to continue the conversation, I'd love to hear what you think about this car and how you think iRacing did with it. Additionally, I'm super stoked to start racing this car in the future in both IMSA and ILMS, as well as some special events too, some Endurance Le Mans Series races, Petite Le Mans, Daytona 24, etc. So, if you want to join me for some of those races and some of those live streams, or if you enjoyed this video as well, definitely consider subscribing so you don't miss those. Anyways, thank you so much for watching again. See you on the track. So we're going to be slow on the straights this whole race.